y'all, it's Mary, and I'm so excited you're here for this month's topic, which is all about identity. But before we hop into today's episode, we need to be asking the essential question, who am I? This month we'll explore the ins and outs of what makes us us, and I'll help you come back home to your authentic self.
Welcome to the Living Fully Alive podcast with Mary Hyatt, here to help you find your authentic voice, learn how to love yourself, and embrace your life. And now, your host, life and mindset coach, body love advocate, and doTERRA Presidential Diamond, Mary Hyatt.
Hey y'all, welcome to episode 2 of the second season of the Living Fully Live podcast. Today's episode is going to be a fabulous candid conversation with my part-time co-host, Lindsley Brooks. We're going to be diving deeper into this month's topic of identity and explore what it's like to have an identity crisis when your life looks nothing like you thought it would and you've lost touch with your real self. And I couldn't think of anybody better to have this conversation with because Lindsley and I both have been there in our lives where we suddenly realize, oh my God, who am I? What is this life? What has happened? It's totally different than what I used to envision when I was a little girl. So we get into all of that. And in case you weren't familiar with Lindsley, I thought I would just get on here and brag about her for a second. Not only is she one of my very best friends, she is a total powerhouse. She is my go-to person for candid conversations, whether it's about, religion or spirituality or real life things that are coming up, relationships, sexuality, femininity. I mean, you name it. She and I have the best casual, just raw conversations. And today's episode is no exception. She is also an incredible life coach, energy healer, and feng shui practitioner. But if you haven't listened to episode 1 of this season in the whole month of identity, where I explore the concept of what makes us us, then make sure and go back and listen to the episode entitled, Who Are You Really? And of course, don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of the episodes that come out weekly every Wednesday. But without further ado, here is my conversation with Lindsley. All right, so I'm sitting here with my lovely BFF, Lindsley Richie Hunter Brooks.
No, that's an identity crisis. That's a perfect segue. This is a great intro, actually. How many last names can one human have from all the different identities that she's had by 40?
You know what? Okay, I didn't even mean to go into this.
But it's kind of brilliant.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Your name.
I know.
How much your name contributes to your identity. And this is our first conversation that we're having like this. We're sitting at my dining room table here in Nashville.
Beautiful day.
Beautiful day. And we're just going to have a candid conversation about identity. And I think that's the perfect place to start because both of us are divorced.
Yep.
Both of us have had our maiden name, our married name, and then you went back to your middle name.
Yeah. So like both of us have had a name identity crisis.
Well, I can remember that actually when I got divorced, I was going to keep the name Crimmins because I felt like I got married at 20 and I got divorced at 30. And so I was married for almost 10 years. And I remember thinking in my whole adult life, I've been more of a Crimmins than I was a Hyatt. Like Hyatt was my childhood name. And I had kind of all these sort of identity issues around my family. And I really wanted to be my own person. It felt weird to go back to my childhood name. And then basically because he ended up getting remarried to somebody that I know and I'm really close with, I was like, that's going to be really weird if her name is Crimmins and my name is Crimmins.
And two of y'all floating around out there.
I was like, I just can't do
No.
it. So I was like, okay, I got to go back to Hyatt. And I remember like having to sign my name for the first time as Hyatt. And it just took me back to high school. It's like, you know, when you practice your signature all the time, that was weird. Well, and now I've owned it. Like now I feel like I'm a Hyatt.
Sure. Well, and then you got a new version of a Mary Hyatt, because that's really kind of what happened for me is when it was time to change my name. Well, I remember actually at the day of divorce court, the judge asks you if you want to go back to your maiden name. And at the time I was not ready for that identity, and I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it took me a couple of years actually. And then it was like, well, I don't want to go back to Lindsley Ritchie because that's who I was as a girl. And I don't feel like that little girl anymore. Yeah. And I also don't want to, it had something to do with like going back underneath my father's name. I don't know. It was kind of a weird transition. And then I was like, well, I don't feel like Lindsley Hunter. So I just dropped the whole last name thing completely and just went by my first and middle name, which is Lindsley Brooks. So I'm like, legally, I'm Lindsley Brooks Ritchie.
I think that's what you are.
Yeah. And then socially, I go by Lindsley Brooks. But I get asked all the time, what is your last name?
Literally, you were my best friend, and I was like, shit, what is her name?
And even my email address is like Lindsley.Hunter. It's just like, it's hard.
Okay, well, this is perfect because the reality is, whether you've been married and divorced, or you're still married, or you've never been married, in my opinion, it's like we have several identities throughout our lifetime, roles that we've played, seasons of life. I mean, you think about the age-old saying of an identity crisis, but the truth is I feel like we have this process that happens where we completely transform and become a new version of ourselves, and that's our identity. Like, think about how you would describe yourself as, even just in your work life, your profession. I mean, how many careers have I changed?
Oh, my goodness.
How many lifetimes have I lived? Same for you. I mean, it's like, oh, remember that time when you were an interior designer? Remember that time when you were a realtor? Remember that time when you opened up the farmers markets? It's like all over the map.
And it is kind of funny, too, because it can sound like, we were taught, another identity society tells you, is that you're supposed to pick one career and you're supposed to do that for the rest of your life. But there is something really healthy about letting these identities evolve and actually becoming different versions of yourself. Maybe that's a big old permission slip that we all need or something, because I don't want to be the same person 10 years ago. If I haven't evolved and my identity would still be locked into who I was even 5 years ago. Somebody help me at that point,
But you know what? Changing your identity is really threatening, I think, to relationships. Perceived threat. Like, maybe it's not, but if you have a relationship that's banking on the fact that you stay the same as the person I married, then there's not that permission slip to change.
It can be terrifying. Yeah.
I mean, it's terrifying to go through personally, and then you go, am I going to be accepted if I change? Like, what if all of a sudden I
am into spirituality or whatever? I mean, think about it. That's kind of what happened for both of us. Is you start learning, you start exploring, you start finding new things that light you up, and you hope that your partner comes along, and maybe they do for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then that identity starts becoming more and more solid. And then next thing you know, it can be the very thing that can make you split.
I mean, I think it's varied, right? Because that's like, to me, I mean, my desire and hope is that you can evolve with your person. And it's not always parallel. I mean, it's not necessarily you're doing the same thing at the exact same time or whatever. But to me, there's something really beautiful about thinking like your partner's going to change too.
You hope.
I mean, I guess that's a good point.
Otherwise, they're stuck and
Yeah, you do. Yeah, right. You hope.
But you just hope that your identities can evolve complementary to each other.
Yeah. Okay, so let's rewind for a minute.
Yeah.
And let's think about identity. I mean, even when you're a kid, it's like, who do you want to be when you grow up? I mean, you're asked this as little children to construct your identity before you know anything about the world. I mean, you're just like simulating information that you've been given through your church, through your school, through your parents, through your teacher. Like, okay, well, that maybe is part of the conversation. Some of that is cultural, nature versus nurture, right? That's the nurtured part. But do you think there is a core part of who we are that is maybe our core identity that isn't affected by age, isn't affected by life experiences,
or where you were born, or
but it's just you, like, right, like if you found yourself in a different country, would you still be the same?
I know.
Or is it all based on your life experience.
I do think it's nature and nurture, like, you know, how they say. But, you know, I have thought that too. So when I was doing a training, I certified with Martha Beck, and she always taught us that there's an essential self, is what she called it, and then there's a social self. And the essential self is that part that if I was born in China, or if I was born in Nashville, Tennessee, if I was born in 1700, if I was born in 1979, that would be always consistent. And then the social self is what societal norms are, and they condition you to be a certain way. And you have to almost kind of keep these things in check constantly so that you're not becoming, you know, just your social. But I don't know. I think you have to kind of do your own soul searching to find out who that essential self part is. Yeah. Because that's the part of you that knows your destiny. That's the part of you that knows, you know, like who you really are at your core, that soul level piece. And I also think it's the thing that also kind of, this is a whole other subject, but also is directing you. You know, it's like that part, what she would call your North Star. Your essential self knows where North is on your internal compass.
Or how I would say it is your higher self.
Yes.
Like that all wise, all knowing, the part of yourself that isn't taken by the wind of whatever is coming, but it's like you have that steady ship that's sailing. Yep. That is you. That's your true voice, self. Your true self. Your identity. It's that Sat Nam. Truth is my identity. You know, in yoga we say Sat Nam. Yes. Truth is my identity. And that part of us it's like unwavering, unchanging. And then you think about personality tests.
Yes, yes.
Oh my goodness.
Enneagram, girl. INFJ, whatever. And astrology. I mean, all those kinds of things that can like put you in a box that want your identity to be a certain way. Although we love that stuff.
I mean, I geek out over it.
You do. Yeah. Yeah.
Just so you guys know, those of you who do geek out.
We love those things.
I am a 2 with a 3 wing.
I'm a 7 with an 8 wing.
Y'all, we have the most fun. We're a good little combo.
We are a good combo.
But it is interesting because even that, I actually find some of those boxes helpful because it gives some reasoning as to why I do the things that I do. It helps me understand myself better. Like, oh, that was been motivated by this fear of XYZ. That's why I'm doing these things. Like, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's just part of my makeup.
They're like tools, you know, to help you excavate that kind of essential self qualities. Because I think to myself, like, if I know I'm a 7 and I love adventure, let's say, then I don't need to be working a 9-to-5 corporate cubicle job. I will go crazy. Yeah. And that would be what Martha would call your social self tells you that you have to go do a job like that because that's what everybody else is doing. And then you end up getting fired and, you know, sabotage it because my core doesn't need to be there, right? So
it's going against your truth. It's going against your nature.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so this is an interesting pivot to think about this idea of roles versus identity because I think we get this mixed up.
Good point.
Like, I think there are these roles: wife, mother, sister, healer,
Southerner.
Yeah. We should do a podcast that we really go crazy with our Southern accents.
Oh, we could just talk like our mamas.
Oh, hi there. Okay.
Mary.
What I love is that your mom actually sounds like
she does, y'all. She sounds like Paula Deen.
But my mom doesn't. But when I talk from my mom's voice to someone else, it's that voice. Like, I'll pretend. I'm like, oh, Mary. Oh, honey.
Lenny. That's what my mom says. That sweet Mary. She's the prettiest thing.
She's seen me like one time. I love it. But that would be hilarious. But no, you're right. Like, what does it look like to be play the role of the Southern woman, the Southern wife, the Christian woman?
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, we could go on and on. And I think that it can be really challenging. Like, I had a coaching call today with one of my clients, and we were actually going over that. Like, what are the roles that you play in your life? And it was just so immediate. Like, there's a laundry list of these roles. And essentially, to me, it's the masks that we put on. Like, oh, I got to be this person for that person. And I got to put this mask on for her or this mask on for him. And I'm different at work than I am at home and all these things. But it's like, okay, but who are you really? Like, what's the difference between a role that you play and then your actual identity.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because they are, that's why we love the Enneagram, is because I thought for sure it was just another box that I was going to have to fit into, but that's how they break the whole thing down. Obviously, we'd have to talk to a real expert on this, but there's 9 different masks that you can put on to deal with your childhood traumas. And essentially, I chose the 7 mask and you chose the 2 mask. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's like the ways the masks are not bad. If anything, they kind of help you survive your life.
Oh, gosh.
It's just when you get stuck having to play this role that's not authentic to who you truly are, and then you don't really do the work that is necessary for every soul and every human being's evolution to find out who you are and what your truths are. That's when you get in trouble. It's when you just start wearing these masks as if this is your absolute truths. And then life starts falling apart all around you, and it's really because you weren't supposed to be showing up that way.
Well, that's honestly what I did. I mean, it was like, I remember reading, Brene Brown's book. I'm blanking on the name. The
authenticity one, or the
the authenticity one.
We love her. What's the name of that book?
She's my favorite author ever. What did she write?
Yeah.
Oh Lord, it'll come to me. Anyways, but I remember reading it, and I was like,
Gifts of Imperfection.
No, it's the one after that.
Oh, we tried.
I literally have it. I could just go over there.
No, it's good.
No, but I remember reading it. It's all about authenticity, all about finding your voice. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I've constructed my life around this mask of who I'm supposed to be as a wife, as a good Southern woman. And that's not me. Like, I am actually a little bit wild. Like, I actually have a lot of 7 in me. I like variety. I like freedom, independence. I'm an Aquarius. I need room to breathe.
Yes.
I need room to run. I'm like a stallion, like, give me a big field and I want to run. And I was confined. And I always used to say, a huge argument that my ex-husband and I used to have all the time was, I feel like I'm in a cage. I feel like you've put me in a cage. And it was like, I felt so confined. And I would not let that show, because
that wasn't appropriate.
That wasn't appropriate.
Yeah.
And I should love this, and this should be good, and, all these things. And I remember reading Brene Brown's book, and it was like, oh my God, I've been denying who I really am to get love. And I think that's ultimately, you think about the Enneagram, but you go back to childhood, we are just figuring out how we can best get love. And who do we need to be in order to receive love? And that's when we start playing these roles. It's like, oh, this is accepted. This is when I get love. We learn that sort of reward, the Pavlovian thing of, okay, if I do the bell, then I get the treat. It's like, oh, if I show up this way with my family, then I'll get love. Then daddy will pay attention to me. Then mommy will pay attention to me. Then my friends will like me. My teacher will like me.
The guy will never leave me, whatever.
Yeah. We start playing these roles, and then all of a sudden we forget who we are.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a little bit of having to die to yourself to survive.
Well, and then I don't know about you, but for me, it's like the second I realized, oh my gosh, this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. I can't live like this. And yet I don't know who I am yet. It's like, well, if this isn't me, who am I?
Right.
And then a lot of times you stay doing the same thing, almost like stuck, because you don't really know, you're not this person, and yet you don't really know who the other person is yet.
Yeah.
But the whole process of figuring out who you really are, I think, is a spiritual journey.
Oh, gosh.
And therein lies the work, right? It's like, I think a lot of people want to before they jump off the island or jump off the boat to discover who that is, they want to have it figured out. And you just can't. You can't.
No.
You have to just almost like trust yourself enough to know, and God, that the process of discovering your true self and diving into all those, stripping the layers off of the masks off, that is the process of finding out your true self.
Well, and think about it this way. I was just thinking about our moms, right? And like, my mom has 5 kids. Your mom has 4 kids.
3.
Why did I think you had a brother?
I don't know. Maybe I do. Who knows?
Who I was thinking of? Jared.
Pretty much like a guy that's like a brother. That's cute.
I was like, oh, okay. Okay, so three daughters. My mom has 5 daughters. I mean, the Southern way, and I think actually a lot of people fall into this still, is it's 100% devote your life to your children. You give up your identity. You give up your interests. You give up your passions, your desires. And not for any other reason than basic survival.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have time to yourself anymore, especially if you've got little kids crawling all over you and everything. You just end up being mom.
Sacrificing.
Who are you? Well,
Yeah.
I'm a mother.
Yeah.
Wife second. Mother first.
Yep.
And so what's interesting about that is, at least for me, witnessing my own mom, you know, as we all got old enough and left the house, it was like, once again, an identity crisis because she had fallen into her role.
Yeah.
And not holding and tethering to her identity, but she just was only her
And
role.
she didn't even know that there was another option.
No, it wasn't a conscious choice. That's why I say it was like totally survival.
Totally.
And so now, as a woman in her 60s, you know, now she's painting, she's hiking, you know, she's finding out, you know, what makes her come alive all over again because she has the space and the time to do it. And I think to myself, and I admire my mother and her ability to grow and her ability to evolve
And adapt.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
Yes.
it's just been really amazing to watch. And she's just so freaking positive. But I think to myself, we have more consciousness. We have more awareness. I don't want to do that.
No.
I don't want to lose myself in a role and then wake up at 50 and go, oh shit, my kids are gone. Who am I?
Yep. And, you know, I mean, we've talked about this before too, but there seems to be this kind of shift happening with a lot of our friends or even women in general, where all of a sudden they're like, I don't have to live like this anymore. And they're the ones wanting to leave the marriage and doing all this other stuff. And I, you know, it is what it is. I don't know if it's just like a pendulum swinging from where we are all just we've been trying to do what we were supposed to do for so long. And now all of a sudden we all got a big old permission slip and everyone's just like, I'm out of here. But I think it's not healthy to say that that's just the new normal now.
No.
But I would say that it's like, just because you're aware that you're living some identity that's not who you really are, does not mean throw the whole baby out with the bathwater.
No,
you know, it's like you can't just change everything just because you've had this aha awareness that I'm not living my true best life or something.
No, I think that, I mean, quite honestly, that feels like the immature way of handling
Exactly.
it. I mean, you know, there's a way to do it from a healthy place.
That's conscious, like you're saying.
That's conscious, and that's honoring the life that you've created.
Yes.
In that role that you've been playing, and seeing where there is space to shift, to evolve. And not every relationship can handle that, but I think a lot of them can.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's like honesty 101. I mean, just being honest with that process of, I'm confused, I'm trying to figure this out, and not blowing up your whole life.
Exactly.
I think that is where that's a coping strategy. It's like there's a healthy way of working with a therapist, working with a coach, doing the things that are necessary with support.
And to be able to integrate it into your life as opposed to just one extreme or the other. Yeah.
Hey y'all, I just wanted to interrupt this episode real quick to remind you to subscribe to this podcast. I know the emails get lost in your spam folder. Maybe you're not even subscribed to my newsletter yet. So subscribing to the podcast means my episodes come right to your phone. That way you won't miss out on any of the Living Fully Alive episodes. And speaking of episodes, you're definitely going to want to tune in to next week's show where Lindsley and I interview Kate Pintor. Kate has over 15 years of transformational leadership training under her belt, dual coaching certifications in strength strategy and awake coaching, and is one of the top 5% of strength coaches in the world, specializing in the Clifton Strength Finders assessment. Our conversation with Kate will invite you to stop apologizing for who you are and confidently own your strengths and unique talents. You won't want to miss it. So make sure to subscribe and we'll see you next week. All right, now back to this week's episode. Okay, let me ask you this because you're from the South.
Yeah.
I'm from the South. And I think this is true probably for every area, we'll just say in North America. Like I think about women who grew up in California. There is a different ideal woman expectation that we're trying to get to. I actually wanted to write a book for a while that was called X-Rated Mother Approved.
Oh, cute.
And it was basically about...
Nobody steal that, by the way.
That is mine. TM. TM, Mary Hyatt. But basically, it would be this book about the unspoken rules of the South and this need to perform as a woman. And it's sort of like, what do they say? Women on the street.
Freaking the sheets.
Yeah, something like that. Basically like, you go to your church on Sundays and then you better have great sex at home.
Yeah.
But that's in private. And so, to the public, or like, for example, I think about women, even just in Nashville, it's all just smiles and polite and, everybody's gossiping behind the scenes.
Bless her heart.
Oh, bless her heart. It's a real, this is a reality show.
Yes.
Living in Nashville is a reality show.
Yes.
We should do a whole episode on that.
And yet there's really I'm guilty of these things too. And so are you. I feel that we are very intelligent, conscious human beings.
Yes.
It's not like we're all these little redneck Southern belles that whatever, you know what I mean? But there is an element of just doing that. It's so ingrained is my point.
Yes.
It's so ingrained in who we are that even if we think of ourselves as conscious, it can still.
Oh,
we're
living out.
Yes.
This old model.
Yeah.
Unconsciously. I mean, in so many different ways. So I'm curious for you, because I wonder if it's similar for me. When you were younger and you thought about becoming a woman, describe that for me. Like, what did that look like? What did your mother say it was? I mean, who was that ideal Southern woman that you were someday going to become?
Oh, it was, definitely a wife and a mother. Career. Now, in my own little mind, I was like, I'm going to be a boss lady. And I would daydream about standing in a boardroom and telling everybody what to do. That was and then the other fantasy I had was that I was going to own an art gallery, and I was going to be this artist. But it was always just kind of ooh, that's a fun little fantasy. It was never I'm going to work really hard so that I can do those things.
Right.
Because all I knew at the core of me was that being a wife and a mother was the most important thing. And without those two things, what's the point of being a woman? It's a kind of in fact, to tell you this this can still get me a little triggered. After my divorce, I got invited to attend the Power of a Praying Woman's Bible study brunches. And I'm all for, whatever anybody wants to do. But the core group were all mothers and they were all wives. And that was important. That was the whole thing.
Probably all white.
Yes. And I had just moved back to Nashville after my divorce. I was trying to integrate back into my world here. And I had forgotten how, I guess, Southern or Christian, what that little bubble world was. And I attended one of their brunches and this guest speaker was going on and on. She had 7 kids. She homeschooled her kids. And the whole talk was pretty much as women, it is our jobs to create and make babies and to be the best mothers, literally talking as if this is your only job. It's the most important. And I had this woman come up next to me and whisper into my ear and say, you claim this for your life one day too. The enemy has not stolen that from you. You can have this too. As if
something was wrong with you.
Yes.
That you didn't have children.
And I remember in that moment having this oh my gosh, I don't fit into this anymore. And that identity, I didn't even realize how much I think I still had been operating even in that, to the point where here I was, circumstantially things had looked different for me. And I was feeling okay. I was at peace with where I was. And yet society was telling me I didn't fit in anymore. Yeah. And I was like, well, I guess I'm not allowed to come to this Bible study group anymore because I'm not a wife.
Right.
And I'm not a mother. And that is a bizarre feeling when that has been your world and you were just even a part of it.
Standard of being a successful woman.
Yeah.
Which, again, neither of those things are bad things.
Not at all.
Being a wife, being a mother, being a stay-at-home mom, being a
homeschool mom
are wonderful. All those things are beautiful. Yes. And for those of you who are listening who that's your life, yay.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong. It's the unspoken almost agenda.
Exactly. I didn't fit in
Right.
I wasn't a part of the club anymore.
Yeah.
And if I didn't want those things for my life, there must be something wrong with me. So don't worry, honey. You can claim that for yourself. It's this bizarre, there's something wrong if you don't want that. And I think that's part of that Southern culture. I think and I don't know, maybe it's true for anywhere across the board. I can only speak from my own experience, but yeah, I think the Southern thing really influenced me. What about you? Did you have that?
Yeah, for me, it was a little bit different in that, I have 4 sisters. None of us finished college. We were all college dropouts. Some of my sisters didn't even go to college. My dad's an entrepreneur.
Right.
So there was a little bit of like, we're going to do something like business-wise, we're going to have a job. I worked 2 jobs in high school. My sisters all had jobs. So there was a little bit more, it wasn't even, I wouldn't say career focused, but there was something about contributing to the world. And there wasn't a lot of emphasis put on children. Now, I got that from society because I remember thinking, all right, I'm going to have all my children by the time I'm 25. So by the time I'm 30, I'm totally done having kids. And I remember thinking that. And even, do you remember playing that little game, MASH?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Mansion.
Yeah. Apartment.
What
was the S?
Shack.
Oh my God. House.
Right. And so your whole, it's like, how many times did you play that little game where you were thinking, who am I going to marry? You put down the couple boys. Yeah. And you got to circle the one that you were going to marry based on the number. And then you decided if you were what kind of car you were going to have, if you were going to, how many kids you were going to have, what kind of house you were going to live in. And that was, that there could not be a better picture.
That's so true.
Of what the focus was. Yeah. So from a society standpoint, absolutely. Get married. I got married at 20. That was the focus. Let's get married. Now, I wanted to be a therapist. I was very active in that. By the time I got married, I was already, I started a farmer's market a couple of years later. I had started a blog. I never graduated from college. I dropped out. But it was like, I knew I wanted to do something. So I don't know that being a stay-at-home mom was ever communicated like that was the thing to do. I definitely saw my mom as not having an identity. And I think that it's almost like we all sort of reacted against that a little bit. Like we all sort of wanted to have, almost like be more like dad.
Right.
And so what's funny now is we're all entrepreneurs.
I know.
And so it was a little bit different, but I think there was more of a behavioral thing, not necessarily like what you did, but ways of behaving, decorum. You think about, what do they call this? The ball, the debutante.
Oh,
balls,
sure. Oh, gosh.
And things like that. That was like, I never went to one, but that was big, like with my friends that did all that, presented to society in your dress. Yeah. And I definitely had roles of a woman that I was supposed to be, which was beautiful. 100% number one, beautiful. Yep. Like that was my worth and value as a woman is you need to be beautiful and thin. So that was more of the focus was around body image more than it was wife and mother. Yeah. But it was pretty devastating to my family when I got divorced. That was like, I was the first person.
And I was too.
And my whole family lineage to get divorced. And so that was certainly not part of the plan. You were supposed to stay married,
no matter
stay
what,
committed, no matter what. So that was definitely, that rocked the boat for sure. But yeah, I kind of was, especially once my ex-husband and I decided not to have children, it was like, we felt like we were rocking the boat from a Southern standpoint because people would say, well, when are you guys going to have kids? When do you want to have kids? And we were like, we don't want them. Right. And thank you, Jesus, we did not have children. I'm so grateful for that.
Well, and like, I love what you're saying too, because it's like that. I was raised the same way, and that, like, of course, you're encouraged to go after your career or something that you were passionate about. And I don't ever think that, nobody ever said this out loud, but I think society taught it that, like, as long as it doesn't interfere with those roles as wife and mother.
Right.
It's like, that's the kind of insidiousness of all of it, is that it's like, yes, you can do, and sky's the limit for you, honey. You go as far as you want to be. As long as it doesn't interfere with what your responsibilities. As long as you get home and
you make dinner for your husband.
Yeah. And I had a really hard time in my role with my ex-husband because I had a story that said he should provide for me. And I, whatever, to each his own. I don't really, but that element of that was so ingrained in me that when it would become, we were both entrepreneurs, there would be feast and famine. Sometimes I'd make more than he did and vice versa. So it was always just kind of like, it affected our dynamic because that was the societal identity norm of how it was supposed to be.
Yeah. It's almost like that screwed with your thinking more than anything else. Not maybe you guys didn't even have an issue with it.
Yeah.
But because it didn't match up and line up with what it was supposed to look like, then you're questioning it.
Exactly.
Then there's tension.
Resentments. Mm-hmm. Isn't that fascinating? Ooh. So that just comes, I think that's what we're realizing. It has nothing to do with, I guess, even from being from the South or anywhere else. It's all these societal identities and maybe even social norms that become identities that you have to have, like what we've been using that word consciousness, you have to have awareness and consciousness around them to even know that they're getting in the way.
Right. And that's a process.
Yeah.
And I think as long in this journey, and it's messy, I mean, just figuring out who you are is messy.
It's a lifelong journey.
It is, because you're dissecting layers and layers and years of these roles and expectations and belief systems. And so as you begin to do that and pull back these layers, to me, I always think about myself like, where does it feel aligned? Mm-hmm. Where does it feel like truth? Where is this integrity, personal integrity of my word matches how I feel inside? My yes is yes and my no is no. I'm doing things out of my truth. I'm able to speak my truth. I mean, that to me is where you hit that sweet spot, being able to lean into the things that make you come alive, being able to pursue the things that your heart desires in a way that is healthy. I mean, we are all so uniquely created and designed.
And you know what? I mean, as you're talking, I'm like, the core of that is learning how to trust yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And because when you've got all these stories and messaging and all these things in your psyche, trying to sort through what's me and what's not me and who am I and what you're saying, like tapping into that, you have to trust that what you're tapping into is, you know, worthy enough for you to explore and to try on and all these different identities. It's like that opens up the conversation. I mean, think about how this is endless. It's like even the sexuality piece. We talked about that last time, but you know, we've talked about the virgin and the whore, these two identities that women had to fit into. You were the one or the other, and being able to trust your own body, trust your own emotions, trust your own thought process and your own intuition around certain things.
Well, and ultimately, if you go all the way down to the root of the root of the root of the root, am I enough?
Am I enough?
It's who I am without these masks and the roles that I play is who I am enough. And if we don't believe that, of course we're going to hide behind our roles and our masks because that's safe. And then we aren't rejected, but our role is rejected.
Oh,
or a mask is rejected. It's like there's a barrier and it keeps us safe. So coming home to your true identity is vulnerable. It's risky. It's scary. There's oftentimes trauma there of people telling us that we're not good enough or who judgments. When we did show up as our true self, that was, you know, there's some trauma around that. And so it's healing some of that as well. And yet I think because you and I have both been on this journey, and I think that we are more ourselves than we ever have been. I mean, even in the few years that we've been friends, we've changed tremendously.
I know.
And stepped into our truth more and more. It's like, I don't know about you, I can't remember if I was telling you this week, but it's like, I have not felt this sense of peace.
Ever.
Yeah. And I think I've had all these people recently say to me, Mary is just like, it's just more like herself than we've ever seen her.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's this steadiness.
We're just comfortable in our own skin.
We've
lived enough and we've had enough heartache. Something about standing for what you believe in and facing the consequences of that. It changes you as a person. And all of a sudden, there is this settledness within yourself, a resolve that it's just like, you know what? Life didn't show up the way that I wanted it to. Like we said, I thought I'd be a wife and a mother. I am 40 and single. And yet I have more peace about where I am now and whatever the journey lies ahead, because we have like resources that we've had to cultivate and tools that we pulled from that.
Well, and confidence based out of resiliency. I mean, how many times have we been on the floor in the fetal position I mean, I've called you, you've called me, you've held me, we've cried. And it's like, and we've gotten back up and we've done it again. And that resiliency, that resolve, like you said, of being okay with who we are and coming back. Every challenge for me is coming back to, no, I am enough. No, I am enough. I don't need to shape shift. I don't need to change. We were just talking about before we did this, breaking the codependency. Yeah. It's like, no, I can be wholly me. And your opinion of me isn't going to change my lovability. Yeah. Whether you love me or accept me or judge me or criticize me or wish me ill or wish me the best, I can stand unshakable, unmoved. And that kind of peace. And
I may cry about it and I may have some doubt, but just knowing that core peace, because that's what we're saying is like that core identity. Whatever, that I am love, I am loving, and I am lovable, that I am light, that I am a child of God, whatever those core identities are, when you're able to really root into that, all the other masks or whatever we were calling them, like, those can change. And you don't have the shame around it changing isn't as strong. You don't get as triggered when somebody says, oh, you're not, X, Y, and Z anymore. And it's like, you know what? I'm not. And that's totally okay with me. It sounds like it's bothering you. Right. But because what you're saying, that core identity is so solid.
Oh, it's like when I think about it, that's how I feel. It's just like,
I know.
Okay. It's all going to be okay.
No. Oh.
I am.
I know we have our little affirmations everywhere just to remind us, because that's what happens when you get scared, when fear sets in, the core identity stuff gets forgotten. And then we start grasping for the masks to try to get our needs met. And that's when we have our little blackouts, right? It's like, oh, I forgot who I am. Okay, I'm back. Here I am. I'm back. All right, this is what's true. This is who I am. And that's that groundingness that allows us to keep moving forward. And it keeps, when the storms and that weathering of all those identity shifts and changes happen, it's the only way to survive.
Yeah, because if all that got taken away, the roles that you play, if all that got taken away, what's left?
Yeah.
What elements of you are left? So to bring this all to a close.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you an on-the-spot question.
Okay, here we go.
Who is Lindsley Brooks?
Oh, I love that. Okay, first word that came to me was fiery.
That's so true.
I know, but isn't that fun? It just came. Fiery, passionate, gold. Knowing, like an intuition, like an emotional knowing. Emotional. Bossy. I actually think that's good. I like being bossy.
Bossy.
No, in fact, I like the idea of using words that are not normally used to describe, like the fire, the water, just like there's something about, I want to be the sensualness, the senses, like we've talked about.
It's the essence. The essence of you rather than the vocabulary.
Yes.
It's the essence, defining the essence of Lindsley.
I mean, loving, I think, lovable, like to use those words again. But yeah, I like fiery.
That's so perfect. I wish you guys could see her right now, because when she says that word, everything just lights up. It's like, rawr. Oh, it's so perfect.
Okay, what about you?
Okay.
What's your middle name?
Grace.
Mary Grace Hyatt. Who are you?
I know, and that this is the most precious.
I love it.
I would say I am a healer.
Yeah.
I am a seer. I just feel like my intuition is so strong. I'm a lover.
Mm-hmm.
I am light. I am a queen.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say strength. Like I think I just have this strength to me. I am fun-loving. I am an amazing listener. I am, I'm trying to think of some of those outside the box words. I just, like, to me, sometimes it can also be a sound.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so for me, when I was just like,
Yeah.
Like it's kind of that fire but I just feel like I had this fire inside of me that it's just, I'm magnetic.
Yeah.
Like I had this glow about me that I just feel like I emanate, and it's like, I mean, it's just strong and extends out. Yeah. Color blue comes to mind.
Don't you love doing it with the senses?
I know. I like that.
It opens up that whole left, like, get out of your left brain, start opening to the right. I know. Yeah. Like both of us are creators.
Yeah.
Artists.
I'm fire and water for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I've got
the
both
healer,
of those elements.
empath.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this was so fun.
I know. Hopefully other people will ask them themselves that.
Yes. Well, y'all, thank you for being on our first
we did it.
joint episode of the new season. I'm just so excited. And guess what? You're going to get more of us because we're going to come to you every single month having these raw, candid conversations that are not scripted. We literally just sat down.
Get ready, y'all.
And we have committed to ourselves to be very real. And we're not going to hold back. So you're going to get to know me better. You're going to get to know Lindsley better, and hopefully get to know yourself better by witnessing our conversations that I think are going to be collective and universal. So without further ado, we will see you next month together.
See you soon.
And have a wonderful rest of your month. Bye, guys. If you loved today's episode, make sure to share it with your girlfriends and invite them into the conversation of identity. And if you want to keep the discovery journey going towards living more fully alive, check out all my past episodes from season 1 of the podcast over at maryhyatt.com/show. Plus, you'll be able to grab the show notes and our monthly essential oil blend recipe that will help you more fully integrate your true identity into your body, mind, and spirit. Again, that's maryhyatt.com/show. See y'all next week. Bye.